In this tutorial, we're going to start right from scratch in After Effects and show you how to actually design and build as you go in After Effects. If you don't already have a Photoshop graphic to work with, you want to do some kind of a quick project where you're not going to go to Photoshop first. So how do we do that? How do we work just in After Effects? Well, right now this is just my file structure and files. Keep yourself organized. I'm going to open up After Effects CS6 by clicking on my dock. The main thing to remember is the difference between a Mac and a PC is on a Mac it'll be Command, on a PC it'll be Control. Okay, I get this welcome screen. I could go to new composition. I could even open up something I already have. I've already got something I started there, but I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to make a new composition here because I want to show you what's happening inside After Effects. So I'm just going to close that, okay? You could use new comp there, but I'm going to do it here. So here's our project file folder, our panel. You notice right now this is the project file up here that you see. And it's untitled, it hasn't got a name. So the first thing I'm going to do is save this whole project, and whatever I do, it's going to all be in this project. And I can have multiple different like mini projects called compositions in one project. So let me go and go File, Save As, and I'm going to save it where? I'm going to save it on my hard drive. I'm going to save it in our class folder here. I'm going to save it under Graphics Unit, and then under Graphics Unit I've got some tutorial stuff there. So I'm going to just give it a name now. I've got the right location. I'm going to call this Snyder. Actually, I won't put my name on this. I'm going to call it 01 underscore shape layers. Okay, and the extension or the last three letters for an After Effects is .aep. Okay, like in Photoshop it's PSD. In After Effects it's .aep. It tells the computer what kind of file it is and what program to open with it. And down here we're in After Effects. Okay, click OK and it says, oh, you want to replace it? Yeah, I'm going to replace. I already made one, so let me replace it. Okay, so there's my project name up here. Good start. Now what I need to do is make a composition. So in Photoshop you would have had a composition with all the layers in a folder in the project panel here with all of the different layers from Photoshop. In this case we have nothing right now. So what I need to do first is make a new composition. I could go up here and click New Composition under Composition. I like to, or go Command N for New. I just like to right click, New Composition. And you get a new composition window here. Composition settings. Now you've got to name this. I'm going to call this Basic Shape Layer Tut for tutorial. Okay. Now what are the settings for this composition going to be? Again, a composition is like a sequence in Premiere Pro. If you don't have a composition, you can't do any editing or creating. In Premiere Pro, if you don't have a sequence, you can't actually edit on the timeline. Okay, so it's just like that. So we're going to be on the HD TV 1080 2997 high definition 1920 by 1080 pixels. Okay, and we're going to have a frame rate of 2997. Now here's the thing you got to pay attention to is the duration right now is set to 15 seconds, 0 frames. Maybe I want to change that to just 10 seconds. So I just clicked and dragged to highlight it. You don't have to hit delete, people, when you're going to change a value. If it's highlighted, you just type. So if I click in there, now I do have to delete. So click and drag, 10, enter. Now, what do you think I did wrong? Let's go. There's my composition that I just created. It's like a sequence. Right click, let's go to composition settings. I can do it by right clicking, which is the way I do it, or you can go to composition settings. It's going to open that window again. I wanted it to be 10 seconds. Oh, look, I only made it 10 frames. Okay, it's very short. So because I have to go 10 seconds, 0 frames. So make sure you get that correct, and there it is there. Okay, I want a black background always for my composition. If I do want to add a color, I add it as a shape. Okay, so click OK. There we go. There is my composition settings, and there's all the settings that I just did, which essentially was just changing the duration. Now, next time you open up After Effects, it's going to remember the last composition settings you did. However, if someone in the class has already used After Effects after you, these may be different, so you do have to check that. So just be aware of that. So here's my composition. If I double click on it, nothing happens because there's nothing in it. In Photoshop, you'd have a folder here with all the layers. Right now, I have no layers. Okay, so what do I want to do? Let's add a shape to this composition window. Okay, so here's my shape tool up here. Just like Photoshop, if I click and hold, I can get various shapes. I'm going to just use the rectangle tool. And then what I'm going to do is just go on to my composition window, and I'm just going to click and drag, just like Photoshop. And there it creates that shape. It's a rectangle. There's the bounding box. It's very important in After Effects, this bounding box. It is in any program, but especially in After Effects to be aware of the bounding box. Now, if you look over here, you'll see this little dot. That's called the anchor point. I'll get to that in a future tutorial, but it's very important once you start moving things in After Effects to know how to manage this anchor points position. Okay, I'll get to that later. After I've made my shape, I want to get out of the rectangle tool because I don't want to click. Oh, look, I've just created a shape by mistake. Command Z is your friend. Unlike Photoshop, if I drag, say I've dragged a bunch of shapes out by mistake, Command Z goes back, Command Z again, back, Command Z again, back, Command Z again, back. Unlike Photoshop, which is a undo, redo, in After Effects, it's back, 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 back. If you want to go forward, it's Shift Command Z, forward, Shift Command Z, forward. I'm bringing back what I undid. Okay, Shift Command Z. So Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, get back to my original shape. Now, always go to your selection tool. It's why you're going to select your shapes and move things around to position them. Letter V gets you there. Okay, so I'm in my selection tool now. I'm no longer in my shapes. So here's what I want to do. If you notice when I created this shape, let me just delete it and do it again. Okay, so I'm going to go to my shape. Watch down here in the layers what's happening. Click and drag. Oh, look, it gives me shape layer 1. Okay, what's a shape layer? It's basically got content in it that I can now manipulate. I could actually have multiple. Watch this. Boom. See how I'm adding multiple rectangles in this one layer? Unlike Photoshop, if I start to drag new shapes, when I've got this selected, it'll add shapes to this one layer. That may or may not be what you want to do. If I click off of the shape layer, deselect it. Now if I drag a new one out, oh look, it's made a second shape layer. They're no longer connected. Okay, click off and I drag again. It's made a third shape layer. No longer are these three connected. Okay, so shape layer 1 is there, shape layer 2 is there, shape layer 3 is there. I don't want 2 and 3 right now. Select it, delete it. Don't want shape layer 3, select it. Once it's selected, you'll see the bounding box appears in your comp window to show you where you're at. Delete it. Okay, let's now select shape layer 1. That's what I want to deal with. Okay, now my composition is, again, how long is it? Right click, composition settings. It's 10 seconds, black background, that's good. So let's go into our time indicator here and let's go to time. This is the easiest way rather than taking your play bar and scrolling along like so. It's, oh, I've got this really zoomed in. Let's zoom out now. See the time indicator up the top? Now we're into frames. I've zoomed out. Okay, or zoomed in, I should say. Okay, so now I can see what I'm doing. I'm seeing 5 frames, 10 frames, 15 frames. Again, 1 second is right here, 30 frames. Okay, so let's go now here to 15 frames is where I like to start my animations. So I just type in 15, enter. and it's taken me to the 15 frames. If I type in, let's say I wanted to go instead to the 1 second mark, well, I'm going to type 1. Oh, my play bar went back. Why? Because it took me to 1 frame, not 1 second. So I'm going to just click that again. I'm going to go 1, and then I have to, how many frames? 0, 0, 0. So 1 second, 0 frames, it takes me to that 1 second mark. I said I want to go to 15 frames. Let's click 15 frames. Okay, not seconds, frames. Enter. It takes me to that point there. Now, what I want to do is set a keyframe. Unlike when I was working in Photoshop where I had a finished design already and I wanted to make sure that after animating everything finished where I wanted it to finish, in this case I'm going to build forward instead of backwards like I did in a Photoshop graphic. For the most part, there'll be sort of a back and forth a little bit. You'll see how that works. Okay, so at the 15 frame mark, I want this object, this rectangle, to be in this position. Okay, so I'm going to go to the transform just like you have in Photoshop. There's my 5 options. I want to transform for this particular tutorial just the position. So I can open up the transform, or I can work a little bit smarter and type P, and it brings up just the position transform for this shape. Okay, I can turn it on, and there we go. So I've set a position keyframe by turning it on there. Now, if you don't like this view because you're not used to it, go U. U gets rid of it. No, it hides it. U brings it back. Okay, UU brings it all up, everything. So U hides, and then a quick UU brings everything up. And here we are down here to transform. Okay, and let me just hide the properties of that rectangle. So there we are. We're in the position. I want to see all the transforms. There they are. So I click off transform and bring them back. So I'm in the position keyframe. There it is. It's set at 15 frames. Let me move this. Use my selection tool. Drag it. Now here's the problem. If I'm not careful, I'm going to be moving this vertically and horizontally. I want to go straight horizontal. Hold shift. You're going to constrain the direction you can move. I'm going to just move it there. I'm going to let go of my left cursor first and then let go of shift. Okay, now what I forgot to do, of course, is I forgot to advance my keyframe. So right now all it's doing is starting here. That's not what I wanted. Command Z. Okay, some of you may have noticed that. So let's have this animation go from 15 frames where it starts to 1 second. 100 frames, enter. Now I set my finish point. Now watch as I drag this time. Look at that path that's coming out there. See that dotted line above the shape? That's the path that this shape is going to take as it goes from the start to the end. Again, so I don't want it to go up here. If I hold shift, it'll lock me only horizontal. See how that path, if I let go of shift, I can go anywhere vertically. Hold the shift, I can only go horizontal. Let's take it to this point, let go of my left mouse, let go of shift, and now it sets, as soon as you make a change, it sets a keyframe there. Okay, I'm on the position transform. So now I should have a very simple animation from left to right. You can see my path here is straight, and I'll get into the path in another tutorial, how you can use that to your advantage. Okay, so I don't like to see all the bounding box and stuff when I'm going to animate, so just deselect the shape layer. That goes away, and what you're left with is just the shape. So let's watch it. I'm going to hit spacebar. Now watch. Oh, it's a little bit rough. And notice up on the right it says not in real time. What happens is the first time you play it, the program has to render or create mathematically all of the frames from the beginning, which is there, to the end. It's got to create all these frames in between, render them out, save them in on your computer in what's called RAM, your temporary memory storage. Okay, so we're going to be using a RAM preview option. Make sure that's selected. You can probably keep your resolution at auto, meaning it'll figure out what the best quality setting is for your animation. You don't need to see everything in full. Half will often be just fine, or you can just leave it in auto and it's playing it back. The goal is to play it back at 29.97. Currently it's playing it back, the first time I played it, at 17, almost 18 frames. That's not going to give you the realistic movement from left to right. So what you might think it looks getting there is not actually real time. So let me play it again. Take the play bar back, hit spacebar, and watch. Movement's a little smoother. Oh, it says real time now. But let's watch when I play the animation and see if it switches to not real time. Nope. See, the third time through, it's playing it in real time. So now I can be assured as I play this, that's how fast it's actually moving from left to right. Okay? Now, it's being a little stubborn, so my computer perhaps is just not rendering it out all that great. There we go. Okay, so just be aware of that, because sometimes you'll see something that'll look really slow, but in actual fact, if it plays it in real time, it'll be much faster. Now, here's one more thing I want to show you about this preview window, is if you check full screen here, okay, and you have this selected, the preview window, and then go ampersand, which is underneath the escape key. Let me select my shape layer, ampersand, oops. I'll go to preview, full screen, ampersand. It's being stubborn. It's showing me whatever panel I have. Oh, sorry, comp. Silly. It's going to show you in full screen whatever panel you have selected. Okay? That's very similar. It's exactly the same as Premiere. So make sure you have the comp window selected. It's now called a comp window, not a program window. Okay, or panel. And hit ampersand, the key under escape. It'll bring it full screen. And then you can just, before you do that, make sure you take your play bar back. Select up here, ampersand, ampersand, hit spacebar. Now you'll see it in real time at full screen. There you go. And then ampersand to get back. Okay, so again, I move my play bar, select the comp panel, hit ampersand, full screen, hit spacebar to play the animation. Done. Ampersand to get back, and now you can make whatever adjustments you might want to make. Okay, so that's a simple animation. Same principles you would have used with Photoshop graphics. Setting keyframes, in this case I set 2 keyframes, a start position and an ending position, and it was a position transform that I was doing. Okay, so that's enough of this particular tutorial to get you started. Try to make a shape and make it move. Just have it go left or right, and then we'll move on to the next tutorial.